Hey, my name's Shanshan. I sell art on shanshan.co. Today we're going to review Cocaine Bear. So this is a film by Elizabeth Banks, who I really loved in Hunger Games, such an excellent actress, but this is her first directing thing. Time is 1 hour and 35 minutes, so right at the sweet spot, I think, of 1 hour and 30 minutes. Actors are Keri plays Sari the mom. Alden Ehrenreich plays Eddie, one of the local gang members in town. O'Shea Jackson Jr. plays David, a local Coke cartel gang member, the next higher level up. Liotta plays Syd, the local Coke boss, so he's definitely the big bad local mafia. Isiah Whitlock Jr. plays Bob, a local detective. Brooklyn Prince plays Dee Dee, the girl that's lost. And Convery plays Henry. So the story is this local drug runners, they usually fly in planes and drop into the mountains, the drugs. And so that makes kind of a touchless contact point to trade off the drugs from Colombia, where they're importing the cocaine from, obviously. But this case, they're going straight to Tennessee, so definitely an unknown trail for the police to follow up. So this guy's going to skydive out of the plane, let the plane crash, so he throws out the coke out the window, and then he's going out and he hits his head. And then his chute doesn't open, or he might have been unconscious by the time he hit the ground, so he never opened his chute. So it's a really funny start to the film. You're like, oh my god, why is all this coke in the freaking bushes, right? And all these locals are scouring around. There's local hikers going in the mountains. These kids run away from school, ditch school, and they want to go paint the local waterfall because their mom doesn't want to do it. And some other local characters, the local forest ranger and everything. And they're all on this mountaintop, and the bears, the local bears, the mama bear finds this bag of cocaine and sniffs it, and the next thing you know, it's this crazed cocaine bear. Overall, it has like a lot of stories. I don't know if you needed all these characters in the story. You could have fleshed out more of some of the major roles, I think, and kind of skimmed off a lot of the smaller roles, perhaps. It would have been nice to kind of see the cartel kind of calling him up, the local boss, and be like, hey, where the hell's our cocaine? You lost it. We need this. The problem is it's 1985, so the contact would have been only through telephone. So it would have been his local telephone. He'd go to a phone booth, use a beeper and all that kind of technology. So I think they could have kind of heightened that up if that guy had gotten the beeper and then he's constantly being beeped. But the problem is they're in the mountains, so there probably would have been beeper towers at the time. So he probably wouldn't have been in contact, so I guess that makes sense as far as not having the cartel actively on the drug boss's boss. I think that would have made for more dramatic why these drug gang is so crazy to go recover the drugs. Similar to like how Scarface is just way over the top about the drugs gone sour and then they go and kill Scarface, right? So you don't need that much, but a little bit of that would have been nice, I think, in the story. Some of the dialogue felt a little rough, a little painful, just unrealistic, especially for the male voices, overly soft. One guy's had, the death of his girlfriend, so that makes sense that he'd be broken up, but the other ones are kind of like, all this mushy stuff. And you're like, guys aren't that mushy, They are around their girls, but not in front of other guys, per se, so it just kind of looks really kind of hokey, I would say. So I didn't really enjoy that. I think the dialogue could have been reworked in certain parts. It might be just because it's a female director, so, she's putting that overly verbose explanation kind of thing to it, which is fine from a female perspective, but for the male voices, you have to keep them tight, I think. Guys just aren't that talkative usually, especially amongst themselves. There was a couple repeated scenes in here. I think there was a flashback to the bar scene to kind of connect it with the bar before, but it's on the bar scene, so there's no need to show that. It was kind of like they were treating the audience like they're a bunch of numbnuts, and you got to explain every little tiny element so they don't get lost in the story, but it's okay if they get a little bit lost. Another thing I think they did, which I didn't like, is they kind of flashed like symbols like, oh, you're in St. Louis, you're in Tennessee, you're in this, kind of at the bottom of the screen. Completely unnecessary. You just need a little quick shot where they drive past a sign that says St. Louis, and you drive past another thing that says something about Tennessee or some recognizable landmark. That would have been fine, I think. It was just overly kind of explanatory that, oh, we're in this particular town. You do that sometimes in sci-fi films, and they kind of screwed up one of the Star Wars doing that, and this, I think, all those things could have been scrubbed out, not needed at all. Just a little quick flash by passing a sign is way better in a film. It works in a series, in a TV series, I think it's okay, but it just looks, I think, hokey in a film sometimes. Another thing they could have done to explain where they were is just establishing shots from the high up, and then you kind of like, oh, this is the town of St. Louis, and you scroll up and you see the Arch of St. Louis, you're in St. Louis. It's a no-brainer. A lot of people know that St. Louis has the Arch of St. Louis, or most people would, I think, that are on the smarter side. Maybe people on the coast that never travel any, they wouldn't, but I don't know, I would know it. I like travel. So the thing I thought was really spectacular in the film is it had some really great jump scares, like a lot of great pacing, and then all of a sudden the bears attack in a really bizarre way. People get accidentally shot. It's just really funny. The same way Pulp Fiction is just off the wall kind of thing. You get the same feel with the bear attacks. It's just like, how are the people going to die this way in some horrible way? Or just be mauled and survive somehow, you know? So it's like... They had some of the death scenes are just so classic here. It's just so well done. And some of the really great camera angle shots, like you see this old lady fly through a window and then you see her like roll up onto the camera. It's such a great shot. You're like, oh my God, that's so like intense. So some really, really great camera effects, I think, here. Spectacular, you know, whoever did the cinematography, awesome. Some of the characters are really fun, like the campy forest rangers. You see this overset woman trying to hit on this younger guy, and you're like, oh, this is kind of super campy, gross. You had like this local gang, they're kind of hitting up on hikers and stuff, and they try to hit this one guy up, and it turns out to be the local cartel member, so he's like, oh, fuck you up, man. So that was really fun. You kind of see that little displacement of power, like the locals like find out, oh, this is the real power behind the scene. You guys are just locals, just kind of starting at the bottom scene. These are more polished criminals. Yeah, I mean, just getting back to I wish the cartel had been calling all the time for updates, but this is a pre-cell phone era. They wouldn't have been able to call. They would have had to use cell phones, maybe beepers, but they're in the mountains, so there's probably wouldn't have been any cell reception at all. I mean, there wouldn't be any beeper reception because they would have had beepers at this point, but they just wouldn't have had those tools to be able to reach them, so there's no way to really show that. They could have had one phone call perhaps in the beginning, but I mean, since you can't call back and forth, there's no way you would establish that would have really kind of set the pace. If it was a 2000 story, you could have totally set the pace with the cartel constantly calling them and the guys like, oh my God, panicking. And it could have really set the pace for how needed it was to recover the drugs. I mean, everyone knows it's going to be that kind of intense, but to express that motive would have been, I think, move the story along a lot stronger. Overall, it's a really fun film. Might even collect it because it's just like one of those goofy films where you're just like, where the hell is this story going? And some of the characters are really fun to watch. So I rate it pretty highly. I'll give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe, you can subscribe below. And I'll see you in the next movie review. Thanks for watching, guys.